The fascinating Thatcher, a very British revolution, tried and failed to prove a sympathetic side to. In a week when much discussion has been devoted to the tears of our departing second female Prime Minister, it was interesting to travel back a few decades and consider the sympathies you or their absence you of our first. The second episode. This episode focused, in part, on assuring us that a human side existed. This portrait provided an exhaustive look at Thatcher with archive footage and much input from her former colleagues in the Conservative Party. They offered personal video head. Perhaps it's more likely that we are so interested in this side of Thatcher because, gender regardless, she appeared unmoved by the hardships of those suffering from her punishing economic policies. In this episode, the journey back in time was as interesting as the subject herself. This was a snapshot of the British political system and its players that feels quite familiar to now in its divisions but worlds away in its etiquette. A Daily Telegraph. MSN UK are empowering happiness for Mental Health Awareness Month. Find out more.
Raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.